Hey guys, what's up? It's Grade. Today the patch notes came out, so I've compiled like the minion sections of it. I have a little section of the video, and I kind of want to go through each thing. The past few days I put out a video on like my wish list. Some of the things got answered on it, but let's just go with all the stuff that I have so far. I may have missed certain things like here and there, but the first thing on top is support Gem Overhaul, right? This is not including like the very section that is not minion related, but for the support gems, pretty much everybody knows now. It's like you can use more than one copy, which is great for us because you can put in like all the feeding frenzies, you know, all the whatever you want, last gasps, attacks, however you want to build it, whatever infusion that you want. So which is kind of good. It's pretty nice, right? So updated the wording on support gems, which adds cooldown. So this is one that's in here. So expanse, I guess, was it stated 8 seconds, but it only added 6. But whatever, we don't need expanse on what's it called? I'm forgetting the name of that skill already. The frickin' spike, the pain offering. Now you can just put, you know, magnified effect and call it good. Updated description of last gas support, right? The mentioned minions die. So I didn't even know this. If last gasp takes effect and then they get one-shotted, they still die. So I've never had that issue, but there it is. Clarified the wording of muster support to refer to specifically the number of different reviving minions you have. So the thing with muster, hopefully it works with multiple specters, right? Because it didn't work like that in Dawn of the Hunt. Hopefully that's fixed to work with multiple specters. So maybe that'll be good if it is. If not, kind of sucks. But whatever, at least you have multiple supports on it, so you can just not have like useless minions around, right? You can have like other like damage minions and stuff like that. So here's one for new content and features. Added a new intelligence persistent buff gem, Ravenous Swarm. Right, so while active, enemies nearby swarm of insects emerge from your body to pursue enemies. Untargetable minions periodically attack and poison enemies within the swarm. So I guess while active, it just happens constantly. So it's like an option. Instead of having raging spirits, you can have this just to go around and poison, see what kind of synergies you have with that. So that's kind of cool. And then what is this? Keystone passive, northwest of the Witch and Sorceress starting location, Black Flame Covenant. This changes all your fire damage to chaos damage. So I guess that's cool, you know. We'll see what happens. We don't know too much yet with what we could do. But that's pretty good. Always sources of chaos damage. Because there's some other differences down when we look below where there's buffs to despair and stuff like that. So less chaos res, that kind of thing. And then right here, Grim Feast, it's back, right? But it's completely different. It has nothing to do with energy shield. Reworked and re-enabled. Instead of granting energy shield, it now allows you to collect remnants from your dead reviving minions. So from your dead reviving minions, you go around, you pick up some remnants, and then you can activate the skill to instantly revive minions based on their maximum life. Yeah, right? I don't understand. I mean, that's super weird. And then it's going to cost spirit, right? That's the thing. It's going to cost spirit. So you have last gasp. Why would you use this? Right? Is it that big a deal that they're dying that you need 2 ways to ensure that they're revived? I don't think so. So kind of a weird moot thing to have. The Endgame Changes, right? This is the one that I saw that was probably the most valuable to us minion players. Items that can have a maximum of 2 sockets now have a very low chance of generating 3 sockets in high tier maps. So chests can drop with 3 sockets, which means you can corrupt for 4, right? And then same thing with here. Helmets that have 1 socket can now drop with 2 sockets, and then you can corrupt for probably 3, which is a huge deal, right? The reason being is the new socketable helm, or the new socketable that gives you reduced minion reservation. It got boosted from 5% to 8%, right? So 3 of those bad boys at 8% is 24% minion reservation, like efficiency reservation, which is high. Or you just stick with 2 sockets and you take the +1. That's also pretty good. +1 minion with a 16 minion reservation. Minion spirit reservation, excuse me. So player changes. You can no longer socket multiple copies of the same skill gem into your main skill socket, right? Skills not granted by gems and skills socketed into persistent buff skill gems do not count towards this limit. You can still have multiple copies of specters or tame beasts, but only 1 kind of each monster. So the only reason I can think of having this is when you're running multiple specters using the weapon swap bug. Right, lately in Dawn of the Hunt, there's certain specters that have really good skills. Like the Rotting Demolitionist, for instance, that I had in the other video. He throws a fire barrel, right? He's from Castaway. And it's his first attack. So if you have 2 copies of that gem, you put it on a weapon swap, you keep using the weapon swap and abusing it. And you could do that. But now, if this is what it says it is, but only 1 kind of each monster, that means you can't do that. You can't equip 2 of the same skills. Could be wrong. We'll have to see when it comes out. And some other player changes, the mana cost growth of all skills has been rebalanced. Generally speaking, skills will have similar mana costs at low gem levels, potentially slightly higher mana cost at some intermediate gems, and lower mana cost, some drastically lower at gem levels higher than 20. So this will be good, right? Because everyone knows if you're trying to play minions, like skeletons have some pretty fun active abilities. When they're like, you know, 35, 36, some abilities are like 900 mana. So you don't even have the mana pool to summon, you know, 2 active abilities. And then on top of that, it's like the cost of Pain Offering is huge, and then you're using curses. Curses are huge. There's a thing in here with that too, with the cost of curses, and we'll get into it when we get there. Right, so mana costs, if it goes down drastically, like let's say Gas Arrow, you could summon 5 casts at level 38 snipers, 5 casts with your mana pool. That's not too bad. I feel like 5 casts without having any mana regen is pretty good, because then if you get mana regen, maybe you can get infinite casts. That would be nice. Okay, so attribute requirements on all elements items have been lowered, particularly at endgame. Endgame base types on average have around 20 to 125% less attribute requirements. So I only have this in here because there's obviously the Alpha Cal's Helm, right? That thing is like what, however many dex as an armor piece. So that'll be good if it gets reduced, so then you don't have to have so much dexterity. That'll be pretty good. And then this section, along with player changes, there's a bunch of stuff with ailments. So fire damage doesn't just ignite, it applies the debuff of flammability, which gives, while the flammability is on, any fire attacks has a chance to cause ignite. And then every time it gets hit with flame, I guess, it stacks flammability up to 100%. Once it's 100%, it's the target always ignites. I don't know why they chose to go that route. Maybe someone smarter than me can, you know, talk about that and how that applies. But for minions, we have fire spells, fire skills, so, you know, that's part of it. One of the big changes to elemental elements is shock now lasts 8 seconds. So does chill. So that's a big thing from 4, you know, especially if you're using something like lightning infusion as your shock. So when it does happen, it's 8 seconds now. So that's kind of nice, especially if you're using, you know, maybe there's some specters that have shock based attacks now. So, or lightning based attacks, I should say. And they shock for 8 seconds instead of 4. So that's kind of nice. And then even the same thing with your storm mages, who storm mages, by the way, took a hit. Those guys, not the hero, not this time around. So chill now lasts 8 seconds. I said that. Elemental exposure, right? So exposures and curses, this is kind of the same for all of them. There's less effect. It's 15% less on magic, 30% less on rare, and then 50% less on unique and bosses and stuff. Right, so kind of nerf there, but you know, whatever. We'll see what happens. Player minions now always hit their attacks. This is nice. This is a nice buff. So all minions, you don't need accuracy anymore, which is nice. It saves you some points in the passive tree. You know, that's 3 points, right? Next to the Relentless Fallen, those ones. And then there's also that dexterity node. Hopefully that dexterity node next to the crit cluster is gone. Maybe that, you know, they change it with something else. When we go down in the passive tree section, it doesn't explicitly say, but there's a lot of changes. All right, so Ascendancy Changes. There's only 2 that are notable for minions. Gemling Legionnaire. So because you can't use the same passive skills, right? Or you can use more than 1 copy of support gems now. It got changed. So now if you have a lot of blue gems, your skill costs have 30% less. So this is nice if you like to spam, you know, active abilities and things like that. So that'll be good for us anyway. It kind of works hand in hand. The Infernalists, the Loyal Hellhound. They got a boost of 1 meter for ignite. So, you know, 2.5 metris, which is good. And as far as Lich and all the other ones, all the buffs were just pertaining to like casting. There was nothing really like minion related. So we'll see what happens. There is one thing I forgot to find in the video. Whatever, we'll skip that. So here's passive tree. They don't explicitly say what they added, but they did say in the video that they added all kinds of notables, all kinds of new like things that you can anoint. I have a little example of that at the very end. But right here, it says 8 new clusters between warrior, witch / sorceress areas of the passive tree. Then added 25 new clusters to the witch sorceress area of the passive tree. And the sources of reduced reservation skills instead now grant increased reservation efficiency. Reservation efficiency is the same thing as reservation of skills, I think. But yeah, 25 new clusters in the witch area. So until we see the passive tree, we don't know really what we got. I feel like the minions got some stuff, but it wasn't as good as some of the other classes, right? But we don't know yet. Hopefully, it's not like we're not just getting like the 7 out of 10 or 6.5 out of 10 or whatever. There's still a lot of things too. There's a lot of reservation that goes down. So the thing between the warrior, right? Why this is kind of a big deal too, because we don't know what the clusters are and what the small nodes are. Warrior has hulking form, so there's no telling how hulking form's gonna change all of this, and then, you know, stuff that we can get. So as far as a starting class for this league, the classes I was thinking of, Witch for sure, right? It's easy go-to, beginner friendly. There's a Gemling Legionnaire. It's got +2 minion, +2 skill gem level. It used to be +1, it got buffed to +2. So that +2 kind of overshadows those initial like Witch talent nodes. The thing is, it takes a while to start playing minions with a Gemling Legionnaire. And then you also have that thing where it's they have +10 quality, which you'll see later on in the passive tree, where +10 quality really does help out a bit. And they also have highest attribute satisfies all requirements, so that's always cool too. So sources of reduced reservation skills. I thought that was only Lord of Horrors. Maybe they're adding in more. I could maybe I'm forgetting it's not just Lord of Horrors, but yeah, Lord of Horrors is the main one, right? 12%. So we'll see what happens. All right, so moving on to skill changes. The mana growth of all skills has been rebalanced. We touched on this earlier, right? So lower costs, some drastically lower. Curse skills and skills that apply elemental exposures now can apply those debuffs to enemies that are significantly higher level than their own skill requirement, right? So with the mana cost thing that I was mentioning earlier, sometimes people would just use like the lowest level skill to keep the mana cost down and to be able to use the skill. You can't do that anymore. Now you got to get hit with full mana cost whenever you use your curse. So we'll see what that shakes out. I mean, because now that we can use multiple copies of support gems, every support gem can have inspiration on it. So maybe it's not that big of a deal, you know? This one's a bigger deal. This next one, Blink Convalescent Sacrifice can no longer be activated in a specific weapon set. They are now required to be activated in both weapon sets and will fail to activate if, excuse me, if this is not possible. So we knew it was coming, right? Convalescence being on weapon set 2 and being able to use it on weapon set 1, definitely a bug. They talked about it in the interview, not possible, so that's 30 spirit gone, right? And Blink is a lot. That sucks. Weapon swapping, having a free Blink was a really nice tech. It was a really nice movement tech, but we have sprinting now. So maybe with sprinting, we don't need the Blink anymore. Maybe Blink is, I mean, Blink was really nice for terrain traveling, especially if you like to grind like Trial of Sekmas in, you know, those, the 3rd floor area, going through all those areas. Blink was really kind of like, you really needed it to get like a really good, decent like time. So that kind of sucks that it's gone. Hopefully maybe we can get like some form of usage of it. Maybe we can just leap over stuff. Who knows, right? Now the next thing, higher rarity enemies are now less affected by curses. So less curse effect. Those is kind of above the same thing with elemental exposure. So 50% less effect on bosses. So boss fights a little longer, a little less damage. Now here, the big one, right? The spirit cost of specters has been adjusted such that specters with high spirit costs are generally cheaper, while some of the cheaper specters are now more costly. Now, we don't know if it's been a flat reduction, but there's a picture. Let me see if I have it. 1 second. Pause. Okay, cut. Back in. Here's the picture, right? So if you look at this picture from the Spirit Reservation, this is a Death Knight. The Death Knight is 100 spirit. So it's down by 16. So 16%. We don't know if it's a 16% cut across 16% clear cut across the board, or if it's only, you know, higher ones are down, because it did say lower cost specters are up. So it's averaging out, right? It says right here, while some cheaper specters are now more costly. So we're probably gonna have to say goodbye to the 10 spirit terracotta warrior, but now with muster into multiple supports, you can actually put an actual specter that's in there that, you know, kind of helps you, benefits you somehow. There's some really good specters out there, so it'll be good. But yeah, I'm really curious to see, because, you know, my favorite, Vile Vulture, 120. If it's 16% less, that puts him at 101. And then it would be nice if they just did everything that was above, you know, 120, those 120, 130s, and I don't know if there's a 110, and they just brought them all to 100. That would be crazy. And we'll go over why with all the Spirit Reservation opportunities that you have. Let's see here. High cost of Spectre and Tame Beast now deal 25% more damage at all gem levels. So I don't know if I'm hope it's a 25% more damage, so multiplier at all gem levels. If this just means that it's just whatever their damage they're doing now, they're just getting 25% more, I don't know if that's going to be enough to justify using spirits as your main source of damage for some of them, unless you have a lot more of these specters because of the reduced cost that they are, and also the reservation efficiency of spirit, right? Because 25% more doesn't seem that much, especially if it takes you like, you know, 60 seconds of just killing T4 Zesh, and 25% of that time of 15 seconds quicker. It's 45-second boss fight, while, you know, some people are doing it in like 3 seconds with like less, what's the word? Less investment into their builds. So what we're gonna have to see, we'll see how it all shakes out. It is a multiplier. I wonder if it's like 25% more at level 1, right? And then the increase in level, the static flat increase, and then 25% from level 1 also compounded on top. I don't know how they do the math, whatever. But yeah, if it's just flat, we're gonna have to see what the overall damage is gonna be. Hopefully it's good. Hopefully it's at least like, you know, at least on the minimum scale, the Death Knight's damage. Because we're gonna have more Death Knights too, with the lower cost and everything. So could be good. It could be really crazy. Reservation skills that had reduced reservation and quality now have increased reservation efficiency with quality instead. So they just renamed reservations, reduced reservation to reservation efficiency. Bind Spectre quality now provides minions deal 0 to 20% more damage instead of 0 to 10 reduced reservation for summoning specters. So that one, it does take a little bit of a spirit hit, right? So it makes sense how they reduce the cost of the spirits, but quality no longer does the reduction, right? So if the Vile Vultures, you know, 10%, they were down 12, that puts them at 108 per Vile Vulture. But then if they just did 16%, that puts them at 100, so they're still less, right? I'm talking weird math, but whatever. But 0 to 20% more damage is a lot. So you're getting from quality a more damage multiplier, and then more damage multiplier from gem levels, right? So that's 2 already. So it's looking good. We don't know yet. Don't know, but it's looking pretty decent, right? And there's a lot of really good specters out there, so it is kind of exciting. But just not sure yet. Not sure. We're thinking about it. Using Blink no longer counts as dodge rolling. Now has a minimum gem level of 8, previously 14. So I put this in here because having Blink on weapon swap is nice. You could do it at a closer level instead of 14, right? Not necessarily minion related, but some people like to have it. There was nothing in here on the other offerings, only bone offering. But to be honest, I don't really use bone offering, but it's here. So spike duration is now 8 seconds, previously 5. So that's good, right? That's at least the length of expanse. While the explosion radius is now increased 2.4 meters, the explosion now deals, it's a little less damage. It's 1375 on the high end. It's down to 1101. The buff now has minions take 20 to 25% reduced damage from hits while shielded, and also has an absorb first hit dealing over 24% of the minions' maximum health. So it gives them a little like temporary shield. Quality now provides shielded minions take less than 30% less damage for 1 second after shield is lost, instead of 40% more physical damage on the explosion. So I never use this, so I can't really comment. So for the people who do, you know, I'm not sure if this is a buff for you in your build. It looks more like a nerf, but I'm not sure. And then I have Contagion in here because Contagion is a great starter skill. And if we ever somehow can get like +1 of our poisons to apply to our minions, then we can use the Contagion to spread it. It would be so awesome. That's the dream. Poison minions where you can somehow allocate, like, you know, effects that are on you to your minions. That's what I really want, because then you can do like Bursting Plague, stacking poisons, Silken Ring, you know, it'll be super fun. But yeah, anyway, here's Contagion. Contagion now provides targets 0 to 2 additional enemies when cast, instead of 0 to 100 to maximum debuff damage bonus from spreading. So that's cool. It's like a free unleash, right? So an additional unleash with quality. The thing that sucks is when you're leveling and you're using gem cutters, you're definitely not gem cutting Contagion first. So this is more like an end game thing, you know. I'm still gonna use unleash on it anyway. But anyway, moving on. Here's Despair. Curse now inflicts 41 to 49. Now this is a lot at gem levels 99 to 20. It used to be 20 to 24. So that's huge, right? For chaos resistance. I still am totally unsure how how negative resistance works in this game, because I remember hearing it in the very beginning where it was like they can't go lower than 0 with a curse. You can't penetrate lower than 0, but exposure goes lower than 0. I'm not sure. And then I don't know if there's a multiplier. I did a test on it. I didn't see any difference, but I really am not sure. And I don't know how to check. There's no like, you can't really trust POB for PoE2. And I remember them saying it, but I don't recall. So if anyone has some actual definitive proof, please let me know. It'd be nice. Otherwise, I'm just going to repeat whatever people are saying. Enfeebled no longer has curse, makes non-unique targets deal 20 to 26 less. So this one's a buff because cursed targets for our cursed makes unique targets deal 10 to 16 less damage. Now it's just a flat 21 to 29 at all gem levels. Right, so Enfeeble got a little bit of a buff. It works for all enemies and it's just flat 21 to 29. Now raise zombies, man. This was number I think 11 or something on my wish list. Still a meme. Yeah, you know, quality now provides 0 to 25% increased effective empowerment on raised zombies. So first things first, what we need to check for raised zombies is the mana cost lower when you actually use it, because it was like 400 mana per raised zombie on my mana pool of like 1100. And then power charge creation is power, because the maximum limit is 10 zombies. So that's a lot of mana, and having ways to set up those power charges, right, and keep it up. So that's kind of weird. Now moving into the skeletons, right? Skeletal Arsonist Explosive Demise is now an attack instead of a spell. Cool. Dealing 300 attack damage. 300%. Now deals additional fire damage equal to 8% of minions' maximum life. Previously 12. So, ooh, a little bit of a nerf, right? Can now target minions with 30 to 1096 life or less. So, earlier use of Explosive Demise. Interesting. I don't know if that's good. It's been a while since I've used an Arsonist. Right? And here, Skeletal Brute has a new command. Shattering Roar. Shattering Roar is a war cry that intimidates nearby enemies, consumes freeze on allies to deal damage in an area around those targets. Yeah, consume the freeze on enemies. Right? We'll look at a little video of it. Skeletal Cleric quality now provides revive skeletons are immune to damage for 0 to 3 seconds after being revived instead of 30% more maximum minion life. So that's kind of good, but I think with this new patch, like, because you can put last gasp on all of your minions, if you don't need that extra slot, you can kind of just not have clerics. You can just put point. Well, it depends on the passive tree. You can just put points into the revive, right? The minion revive timer, and then just have last gasp. And then you could just do that. And then until you figure out what you really want to do to take up that extra support slot, and then maybe have clerics, because it does suck fighting bosses and they always one shot. They always target, they always one shot. Like, then you'll have to have a bunch of clerics, which is consuming so much more spirit. It's just not worth it, right? So maybe having, like, at that point, instead of having so many clerics, you could just have last gasp, a couple, maybe even have that new Grim Feast. Who knows? We'll see. Now, Skeletal Frost Mage, right? New command skill. I'm sad. New command skill, Ice Armor. Frost Bomb is gone, or Ice Bomb is gone. I was gonna use Frost Mages as my leveling ability, because if you play Dawn of the Hunt now, the tail end 2.1 with Frost Mages, that Ice Bomb is overpowered. It is completely overpowered for campaign. It's great. You're just steamrolling. It's super safe, big AoE. So they probably knew that. They probably like, this is too crazy, and they changed it. They gave it Ice Armor, so it reflects cold damage is what it does. And then this part, and counts as frozen for other skills. Hold on. Quality now improves minion damage. Okay, instead of reduced reservation. So the more damage. But it also has the effect of, it doesn't say here. It was on the other article where it says it freezes minion counter. I don't know what that means, but we're going to watch the video. All right, so here's the video.
As a starting point, we just straight up remove the requirement for minions to have accuracy.
All right, so they always hit now.
Always hit, which makes them
cool.
way better. Brute's got some good numeric buffs, but we also added a new command skill where they do a war cry that
here's a command skill
and detonates any frozen monsters and allies around you in a big cold.
Right, there's that green little shout that he does.
Whoa.
You know, there it is. Big AoE.
We've also changed the Frost Mage's command skill to an ability that adds.
So that the Frost Mage puts on Frost Armor, and then the Brutes can detonate him.
Ice armor to your other minions, adding a layer of defense, and it makes them deal cold damage back to the attacker.
So when he detonates, when the Brute yells and he detonates, it looks like it detonates your enemy. And that's what it kind of said too on the French leak.
As well. The ice armor also makes the minion count as frozen, so the Brute's war cry can detonate them too.
Oh wait, no, it didn't destroy him. It just counts as dead. It just counts as frozen. Never mind. Never mind. Let me see. Let me see this again.
Count as frozen, so the Brute's war cry can detonate them too.
So let me count this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So they basically, okay, that's what it is. Because it says it freezes the minion counter. I wasn't sure what that meant. I thought I was hoping it meant that it would stop the minion timer, but that's not the case. Whatever. Let's keep going.
Unearth was changed to work on corpses of your dead
Unearth was
skeletons,
changed,
allowing you to summon the minions more easily in boss fights.
Man, I got baited
And
by
they also
this.
got a new jump ability, allowing them to get into combat faster.
There it is. If you see that new jump ability,
And they also got a new jump ability, allowing them
This
to get
guy.
into combat faster.
so he comes in and attacks. I was
Respectable.
really hoping that that jump ability, off of the leaks from the French site, it just said skeleton, but it was under the unearthed section. I was hoping that meant like the Reavers would have a jump ability, so the Reavers don't have a jump ability. That sucks. The Reavers are still back to melee. It looks like I'm gonna have to play like Forgotten Satyrs. And then right here is the reduced spirit cost, right? We just kind of went over this, the Death Knight. There he is right there. There's a Lightning Wraith,
Was also feeling pretty weak for the spirit cost they have.
you know?
To be
So
honest,
that's good.
we were a little afraid of these when we first balanced them.
So they just kind of go into some extra stuff, but nothing that's not over here that what we're talking about. But yeah, so reduced spirit cost. Man, the storm mages, or I mean the frost mages. I guess you're gonna have. It's nice to have frost mages. Then you detonate them with the brute. That's probably gonna be fun. I was really hoping that we would get Reavers with a leap ability to kind of jump in and then have a ton of Reavers, but looks like that's not the case, unfortunately. When I saw that it was only the bone constructs. Poor Reavers. But anyway, let's keep going. So, right, skeletal sniper command gas arrow. The cooldown is now 6 seconds, previously 8. This is good because I've been a scattershot gas arrow firewall user for 2 leagues for a really long time. And then now it says here the gas cloud now deals 80% attack damage, previously 70, so that's even a buff to the explosion, which is huge. Quality now provides 20% more damage instead of reduced reservation. Right, so 20% more damage, not bad. And then here it is, our old pal, the skeletal storm mage, command death storm. Right, deals this damage is 800 to 3000 on the high end. It's a lot. So previously just this to 2600 on the high end, all the way up to here. Bolt and shot ground radius is now 2 meters, previously 1.8. Now the big one is projectiles now chain 2 times at all gem levels, previously up to 4. So they felt really good for clearing. They were the best at clearing at Dawn of the Hunt. So that's why, you know, Storm Mage builds were super big. But now it's just, you know, it's back to 2. So they went back to pre Dawn of the Hunt. So that sucks. You know, you can't win them all, but, you know, we'll see. Then Unearth can now be used on dead skeletal reviving minions once per death to create bone constructs. So these are the guys that jump. Bone constructs created by Unearth now have a dash attack. We just saw that. Quality now increases bone construct movement speed. Like, okay. The description has been updated to indicate that large corpses can create more than one bone construct. Like, okay. You know, Unearth. Cool. We'll see. The amount of spirit hasn't changed in the campaign, so you're still going to be playing mostly like the same amount of like skeletons through the campaign. The only difference, the biggest difference now is that we can use all the support gems on each one. So you can do like, you can have like one of every skeleton using all the abilities, which will be pretty fun. Update the description of Raging Spirits. This one is another meme. I don't know why they keep putting memes in here, man. This was number, I forget. I think it was like number 10 on my wish list. Updated the description for Raging Spirits to clarify that the Flaming Skulls do not follow the player commands, as they are busy raging. Like, what the hell, dude? Raging Spirits needs endgame help. It literally does need endgame help. You only summon 2 at every level. It should at least be like 3 or 4 as you know, level increases. And the cap is like, 10 anyway. And they get hit. They can easily get killed by AoE. You know, one shot. Maybe the fact that like you can put last gasp on them might help. But then that doesn't help that you have to channel them. Maybe you can use Ember. You run around using Ember Fuselage. I don't know. That sucks. No Raging Spirits. And then right here, next now we're into unique item changes. The only unique item that is new or that got changed that they showed is the Bones of Valir. So now it goes from 20 to 30% increased reservation efficiency. I think it used to just be 20. Yeah, instead of 20. And then on top of that, they also now have 5 to 15 increased movement speed. So that's really nice. There's no energy shield or whatever, but I wonder if those can drop with 2 sockets. That'll be crazy if it could drop with 2 sockets. And then you can corrupt 3. Or you can also use that Sanctified Divine Orb to get reservation efficiency to 120%. That'll be pretty good. You know? So that's a lot of reservation efficiency already. And then the 2 sockets, right? That's 2 10% movement speed. So 2 of those sockets on a 15%er, that's a 35% movement speed Bones of Valyr, which is nice. And then if you can actually have 3 sockets on this guy, that's like what? 45%? That's pretty good. But who knows? I don't know. Now, item changes. Fox Talisman grants 30% increased presence of area on scepters. Previously 20%. So, okay. A little buff the presence area. I wish they would buff base presence area from 4 to 5. This Talisman of Ralakesh. So, this is the good one, right? It's from 5% upgraded to 8. So, that's really good. And we're going to find out why it's so good when we get down into like the new belt for Darkness and Throne and stuff. So jewels and time lost jewels can no longer roll minion accuracy. That's good. Scepters can't roll minion accuracy. That's great. Then Stag's Talisman socketed into scepters now grants allies in your presence area deal 1 to 40 added lightning damage. Tight. Awesome, right? Like lukewarm. That's kind of a lukewarm thing. That's kind of nice though. Monster changes. Treant, Falsprawn can now be bound as a specter once again. So this guy was disabled because if you put like chain on him or fork, he's just covering the screen with poison lobbing grenades, and it's really good. This is going to be a really good specter, so it's nice we can get him again. You find him in like the wild woods and also in, what do you call them? What the hell is that thing called? I don't know why. Rituals. There you go. And the last section is bug fixes. Fix the bug where second wind and ingenuity could support minions with a commandable skill but have no effect. They can no longer support these skills. Fix the bug where muster support did not grant damage to temporary minions. So, okay. Cool. Those are the only 2 bugs that I saw that were like, you know, kind of worthy of mentioning. Everything else was non-minion related. So now moving on to Reap and the new 2-handed weapon, right? There's a new 2-handed weapon. It's a scythe. You can see it here.
We've both
So a new 2-handed weapon. It's a scythe.
And
it'll get to it.
Significantly increased spectre damage too. They should feel a lot
so
more
he said
impactful.
significantly increased. So I'm excited to see what the specters can do because there's a lot of really good abilities.
There's also a lot of new spellcaster weapons with new occult skills. But I'll just talk about one of them that I thought was particularly cool.
Here, Reap.
The Reaping Staff is
This
actually
guy,
a
Reaping
wicked
Staff.
scythe that gives you a new ability called Reap. When an enemy is low in life, you can dash forward and rake enemies with the scythe to cull them instantly, healing you. It can
Using
also
on a
inflict
weapon
critical
swap, right?
weakness on enemies too. Now, there's a lot of balance changes in the Witch's Ascendancy classes, but I'll just talk about 2 of them for now. On the Blood Mage, you have...
Yeah, this is the Ascendancy classes. It has nothing to do with minions. Yeah, so the Ascendancy class balancing changes have nothing to do with minions. So it's just like Blood Mage stuff and some other stuff. So Reap, right? The thing with Reap, it applies critical weakness and the duration is 6 seconds. So crit chance was the king in 0.1. Eye of the Storm, or Eye of Winter, applied critical weakness. And the way it worked was it applied 10 stacks of critical weakness, right? And if you haven't played, right, your base crit chance for melee minions is 5%. And then let's say you have 100% increased crit chance from the passive tree. That gives that minion's crit chance from 5 to 10, right? Still following me? With critical weakness, when you put on Eye of Winter, I think it was 10 stacks. But the way critical weakness works and the way it's calculated is that 10 stacks gets applied to the base crit chance of whatever's hitting it. So that 5 base crit chance becomes 15, and then your 100% crit chance multiplier is applied. So then that 15 becomes 30% crit chance. That's how people were getting 50% crit chance and, you know, 0.1, and how we were doing like 3 shots to kill Zesh. Some people were doing 1 shot to kill Zesh, you know. But the thing is, though, what we don't know is how many stacks of critical weakness is applied, and if the duration is 6 seconds, if that duration is refreshed with every stack, right? So, don't know. Not really sure. Do you just keep applying critical weakness, or is it a one-time flat stack thing? So, not really sure how it'll apply to minions' crit hit chance percentages, or if it's worth applying, or if it's, you know. The other things too, with a 2-handed staff, you lose out on spirit. So there is a mechanic to apply spirit through this veiled mod thing that I'm gonna go over, But there's also minion levels. So there's got to be either a unique scythe that has minion levels, and you could put spirit on it, and then you could also have critical weakness. Because otherwise, if you're weapon swapping to use it, you kill your minions. So, you know, we'll see. We'll see. It might not be a thing that actually works. All right. So next thing is the Darkness Entroned, the Fine Belt, unique belt with 2 sockets. Now this thing, I rewatched it. It's got 2 charm slots. I wonder if it could drop with 3, but it gains bonuses from socketed items as though it was a helm. So you can get different things. You can get body piece, gloves. This one is helm, and then it rolls a percentage increase of effective socketed items. I want to say this thing rolls up to 100, right? Maybe 90 at the highest, but let's go with 100 just for easy calculations. As a helm with 2 sockets. So that's 2 8% minion reservations, right? So that's a 16 and a 16. So that's 32% minion reservation just from the belt. You know, that's quite a chunk. And then maybe if you corrupt it and then you Krangle Divines that, you know, 100 to 120, that's even more. That's like 36% minion reservation just from the belt. The only thing is, the issues that you're going to have to like try to balance is because it's from the belt, right? You have your rings. You have to satisfy your elemental resistances from your rings or another spot. So I don't think there's a way to get max elemental res without some insane gear and like maybe some new socketables that give you elemental resistance or something with the multiple sockets on each spot. You know, we don't know yet till we see. But basically, with the current setup with Dawn of the Hunt with ever-grasping rings using extra chaos damage to allies, you can't rock those ever-grasping rings and use this belt. So we're gonna have to like pick and choose, see what's up. You know, but it's crazy, right? If you can get 3 sockets on your helmet, that is a 16. That's 24 plus 32. That's already 50. What is that? 56. Not including Lord of Horrors, which is 12, 56. That makes it 68. That's all just speculation. This is like, you know, armchair quarterback math for Spirit, but those are the possibilities. And then this is one of the nodes, the new notables in the passive tree. This is one of the ones they showed in the video. It's 5% quality to all skills. Not that great, but you know, it is what, 5% increased damage for specters and certain minions. So 5% doesn't seem like a lot, but maybe it can be in the end. And this doesn't include the 10% for the Gemling, right? Gemling adds 10%, so 10% extra damage, and it's a more multiplier. Well, then again, it's all coming from passive tree, so all the passive tree bonuses will add before it gets multiplied to a different source of damage. And then here, what I have here is a picture of the staff. This is a new mod, plus 67 to Spirit. This is basically a Veiled mod. If you're familiar with PoE1, Veiled mods have been added to Abyss, so hopefully crafting is better, because otherwise, I mean, it's still this like, I still don't like it. There's no way to reliably get certain things on Scepter, so you know, we'll see what happens. This is plus 4 level to all lightning spells, so you can get a staff that's plus 7 to all lightning spells, right? Oh, it's spell skills. It's not lightning skills. Never mind. I was gonna say, I thought storm mages were lightning. I thought it was a lightning skill, so it would apply to storm mages. But never mind. Rain on my parade. Right. So, but plus 67 spirit. If you can put this mod on where is it? I just passed it. A scythe. So you can have critical weakness and you can have spirit on it. Now we just don't know if there's that one that has like plus minion skill. But if it's a unique, you can't add mods to it. So we'll see what's up. And then the last thing is this new Timeless Jewel. So there's a new heroic Timeless Jewel. And you get it from Abyss, right? It's the same thing. You socket it in and it changes a bunch of nodes. And one of the nodes that we saw that they showed in this larger node is that it's 2% increased spirit reservation efficiency of skills per 20 tribute. I don't know what the tribute portion is, but it's also 2% reduced presence of area, so that sucks. But you know, more spirit reservation. So for minions in general, it looks like there's a lot of ways to just like at the high end of the game to really push down that spirit reservation cost. So you can use a lot of things like all kinds of minions, support skills, blasphemy, which makes sense, right? Because we need to use convalescence. Convalescence 30 spirit. So, you know, we're gonna have to find some way to fit all these minions in with all these new costs associated with it. So we'll see. It's kind of exciting. It's definitely exciting, but I don't know. I'm kind of like, I want to see what the damage is on the high end, because on the low end for campaign, minions are fine. They're perfectly fine. If you haven't played in 2.1 recently, minions are really strong. They still suffer from things like you're trying to combo a scattershot gas arrow on fast-moving enemies. It makes it difficult. That's why if we were able to use the frost mages, it was so crazy. It was so crazy easy. But now, hopefully, with the lower cost of specters, we can actually use more specters in the campaign, with all the different support gems, and then the newer support gems we don't know about. So hopefully we get more information and we see some stuff. It's pretty exciting, pretty hyped. So hopefully everyone got something that they want and are excited for 0.3. But yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks for all the support. I'll see you guys in the new season. Peace out. Bye.